Hi everyone, good morning. This is Diana Fernandez, your reporter for today's video. In this lesson, we will discuss another topic in American literature which entitled the Modernism and Experimentation during the year 1914 to 1945. The content of our discussion this morning is to know the introduction and overview, the modernism, and the modern poets during the experiment in form and between the wars. But this is just the first part of our report because my co-partner, Kasia Sumbilia, will be continuing the reporting of this topic after this. So to begin with, let's know the introduction and overview during the modernism and experimentation. So many historians have characterized the period between the two world wars as the United States dramatic coming of age. Despite the fact that US direct involvement was relatively brief in 1917 to 1980, and its casualties many fewer than those of its European allies and foes. John Dos Passos expressed America's post-war disillusionment in the novel Three Soldiers in year 1921, when he noted that civilization was a vast edifice of sham and the war, instead of its crumbling, was its fullest and most ultimate expression. Shocked and permanently changed, Americans returned to their homeland but could never regain their innocence. So, in this period, many soldiers have rural America easily returned to their roots. After experiencing the traumatic incident, many people yearned for a modern urban life. And obviously, the economic status was greatly affected, especially in the crops productivity, that lots of farmers suffered, even the businessmen and workers. So everything in this period reduced in just one incident. In the post-war or the Big Bomb, business flourished and the successful prospered beyond their wildest dreams. For the first time, many Americans enrolled in higher education. In the 1920s, college enrollment doubled. The middle class prospered. Americans began to enjoy the world's highest national average income in this era. And many people purchased the ultimate status symbol, an automobile. The typical urban American home glowed with electric lights and boasted in a radio that connected the house with the outside world and perhaps a telephone, a camera, a typewriter, or a sewing machine. Like the businessman protagonist of Sinclair Lewis' novel Babbitt during 1922, the average American approved of these machines because they were modern and because most were American inventions and American-made. So we can say that in this moment or in this period, everything is getting better and recovered, and people continuously live their new life once again. The Depression turned the world wild upside. So after those continuously living in a new life, it seems that people are getting liberated and wild in their society. And Western youth rebelling, angry, and disillusioned with the Savage War, and the older generation, they held responsible and difficult post-war economic conditions that ironically allowed American with dollars. So the United States had preached the gospel of business in the 1920s. Now many Americans supported a more active role of government in the New Deal program of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Federal money created jobs in public conservation and rural electrification, and artists and intellectuals were paid to create moral and state handbooks. So In this, writers continuously began because numerous novels were created this time, and those novels were created to describe the people, the situation, and the extravagance and delusion of the lost generation. And these remedies helped, but only the industrial build-up of World War II renewed prosperity. After Japan attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, disused shipyards and factories came to bustling life mass-producing ships, airplanes, jeeps, and supplies, where production and experimentation led to new technologies, including the nuclear bomb, witnessing the first experimental nuclear blast. Robert Oppenheimer, leader of an international team of nuclear scientists, prophetically quoted a Hindu poem, "I am become death, the shatterer of the worlds." So, as you can see, we can say that the living of this era is getting into a better life, and in short, it's getting into a modern life. So, modernism, the large cultural wave of modernism, which gradually emerged in Europe and the United States in the early years of 20th century, expressed a sense of modern life through art as a sharp break from the past, as well as from the Western civilization's classical traditions. Modern life seemed radically different from traditional life, more scientific, more faster, more technological, and more mechanized. Modernism embraced these changes. So here are some of the changes that happened during this modernism. So in literature, Gertrude Stein, in year 1874 to 1946, he developed an analog to a modern art. Another one is technological innovation in the world of factories and machine inspired new attentiveness to technique in the arts. Third is photography began to assume the status of a fine art allied with the latest scientific development, and the vision and viewpoint became an essential aspect of modernist novel as well. So in short, everything was surrounded into new technological and innovative world. Now, let me introduce to you some of the modern poets during modernism and experimentation. So first, let's discuss the modern in the poetry 1914 to 1945, which involved in the experiment in form. So, the first one is Ezra Pound in year 1885 to 1972. Ezra Pound was one of the most influential American poets of this century. From 1808 to 1920, he resided in London, where he associated with many writers, including William Butler Yeats, for whom he worked as a secretary, and T.S. Eliot, whose Wasteland he drastically edited and improved. He was linked between the United States and Britain, acting as contributing editor to Harriet Monroe's important Chicago magazine Poetry and spearheading the new school of poetry known as Imagism, which advocate a clear, highly visual presentation. After Imagism, he championed various poetic approaches, and then he eventually moved to Italy, where he became caught up an Italian fascism. So here is the biography of Ezra Pound. So the full name of Ezra Pound is Ezra Loomis Pound. He was born on October 30, 1885 in Haley, Ohio, US, and he died on November 1, 1972 at the age of 87 in Venice, Italy. Ezra Pound is an American poet and critic. He is also an entrepreneur of the arts who did more than any other single figure to advance a modern movement in English and American literature. He was also promoted and also occasionally helped to shape the work of such widely different poets and novelists. Also, he is a pro-fascist broadcast in Italy during World War II led to his post-war arrest and confinement until 1958. So, in early life and career of Ezra Pound, he was born in a small mining town in Idaho, the only child of Federal Land Office official Homer Louis Pound of Wisconsin and Isabel Winston of New York City. About 1887, the family moved to the eastern states, and in June 1889, following Homer Pound's appointment to the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, they settled in nearby Wincote, where Pound lived a typical middle-class childhood. And this is the success abroad of Ezra Pound. So, in England, success came quickly to Pound. A book of poem Personae was published in April 1909. A second book, Exaltation, followed in October, and the third book, The Spirit of Romance, based on lectures developed in London, was published in 1910. So we can say that when he go to England, no, I think this is the time he started to write different kinds of book. So here are some of the notable works of Pound Ezra: The Guide to Culture, Homage to Sextus Propertus, Hog Selwyn Moberly, Lustra Persona, Ripostes, the Cantos. So Cantos is one of the best book of Ezra Pound, because this book was written until the day he died. The Peasant Cantos, the Thracian Woman in a Station of Metra, Return, and the Seafarer. So the overall contribution and achievement of Ezra Pound is that he have 70 books, 1,500 articles, and he win as the Bollingen Library of Congress Award during in year 1948 and influenced other writers. The next modern poet is T.S. Eliot in year 1888 to 1965. Thomas Stearns Eliot was born in St. Louis, Missouri, to a well-to-do family with roots in the northeastern United States. He received the best education of any major American writer of his generation at Harvard College, the Sorbonne, and Merton College of Oxford University. He studied Sanskrit and Oriental philosophy, which influenced his poetry. Like his friend Pound, he went to England early and became the towering figure in the literary world there. One of the most respected poets of his day, his modernist, seemingly illogical or abstract iconoclastic poetry had revolutionary impact. He also wrote influential essays and drama and championed the importance of literal and social traditions for a modern poet. So, The full name of T.S. Eliot is Thomas Stearns Eliot. He was born on September 26, 1888 in St. Louis, Missouri, U.S. and died January 4, 1965 at the age of 76 in London, England. He was founder as the Criterion. And T.S. Eliot is an American English poet, playwright, literary critic, and editor. A leader of the modernist movement in poetry in such work as The Wasteland in year 1922 and Four Quartets in year 1943. He is also his experiment in diction, style, and versification revitalized English poetry, and in a series of critical essays, he shattered old orthodoxies and erected new ones. So, the notable works of T.S. Eliot are The Ash Wednesday, Burnt Norton, East Coker, Little Guiding, Murder in Cathedral, Notes Toward the Definition of Culture, The Proof Rock and the Other Observations, Winnie's Agonistes, The Confidential Clerk, The Dry Salvage, The Elder Statesman, The Family Reunion, Four Quartets, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, The Metaphysical Poets, The Sacred Wood, The Wasteland, and The Tradition and the Individual Talent. So, the movement style of his work focus on modernism and neo-criticism, and the subject of the study is focused on metaphysical poets and poetry. But aside that, T.S. Eliot gathered several awards or several honors and awards. So in literary award, he received the prize of Nobel Prize in Literature for his outstanding pioneer contribution to the present-day poetry in year 1948. Hanseatic Goethe Prize and Dante Medal. So in drama awards, he received 1950 Tony Award for Best Play for the Broadway production of The Cocktail Party. In 1983, Tony Award for Best Book of a Musical for his poem used in a musical cast, or the Posthumous Award. 1983 Tony Award for Best Original Score for his poems used in a musical cast, or shared with Andrew Lloyd Webber, or the Posthumous Award. In academic award, he received inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, 13 honorary doctorates, including the ones from Oxford, Cambridge, the Sorbonne, and Harvard. And the other honor are the Elite College of the University of Kent, England, named in his honor. Another is celebrated on U.S. commemorative postage stamps, and the last one is star on the St. Louis Walk of Fame. So we can say that T.S. Eliot is a very intelligent kind of a person, and also he is also talented. So T.S. Eliot's major works for net exam, or the students of literature. So here is the number one is The Proof Rock and the Other Observation, Aravosbury, The Wasteland, The Collected Poems, The Hollow Man, The Journey of the Magi, A Song of Simeon, Animula Marine, Ash Wednesday, Four Quartets, The Cultivation of Christmas Tree, Edited Selection Poems of Ezra Pound, and the Revised Edition. So another is the T.S. Eliot's poetical plays. Number one is the Sweeney Agonist. Second is the Rack. Third is the Murder in Cathedral. Fourth is the Family Reunion. The Cocktail Party, The Confidential Clerk, and The Elder Statesman. And here are the selected prose and criticism work of T.S. Eliot. Number 1 is The Sacred Wood, the use of poetry and the use of criticism. After Strange Gods, Elizabethan Essays, The Idea of a Christian Society, Notes toward the Definition of Culture, Poetry and Drama, The Three Voices of Poetry, The Literature of Politics, and on Poetry and Poets. So as you see, he has a lot of works. He has a lot of books and a lot of awards. And now let's go on to Robert Frost. So Frost in year started on 1874 to 1963. Robert Lee Frost was born in California but raised on a farm in the northeastern United States until the age of 10. Like Eliot and Pound, he went to England, attracted by new movement and poetry there. A charismatic public reader, he was renowned for his tours. He read an original work at the inauguration of President John F. Kennedy in 1961 that helped spark a national interest in poetry. His popularity is easy to explain. He wrote of traditional farm life, the appealing to a nostalgia for the old ways. His subjects are universal apple picking, stone wall fences, country roads. Frost's approach was lucid and accessible. He rarely employed pedantic allusion or ellipsis. His frequent use of rhyme also appealed to a general audience. So Robert Frost's full name is Robert Lee Frost. He was born on March 26, 1874 in San Francisco, California, U.S. and he died on January 29, 1963 at the age of 88 in Boston, Massachusetts. He is an American poet who was much admired for his depictions of the rural life of New England. His command of American colloquial speech and his realistic verse portraying ordinary people in everyday situations. So notable works of Robert Frost are A Boy's Wheel, After Apple Picking, In a Clearing, Mending Wall, Mounting Interval, New Hampshire, North of Boston, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Storm Fear, The Death of the Hired Man, and The Road Not Taken. And he received an award of Pulitzer Prize Billingen Prize in year 1962. And here are 10 most famous poems by Robert Frost. The one is The Road Not Taken. Number 2, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. 3, Mending Wall. Number 4, Nothing Gold Can Stay. 5, Birches, Fire in Ice. 7, Out. 8, Home Burial, Acquainted with the Night. And the last is The Gift Out Fridge. I think this will be my reporting end because my co-reporter, Kesha Sumbilia, will be the one to report the other modern poets in this period of modernism and experimentation. So again, thank you everyone for listening and have a great day.